Hey guys, me again, back for I guess I want to talk about a couple of the Supreme Court rulings that have to do with immigration that I'm pretty stoked on. We had a ruling out of the Supreme Court on Bruin and Hawaii. I think it was California and New York that were trying to make it illegal to go onto private property, like for instance, an open business that's open to the public. Uh, it's illegal to carry a gun, concealed or otherwise, onto the property without first having permission from the store owner or whatever. Um, which I guess those businesses it's considered public, and we have a right to carry in public. So, so long as everything's straight as far as, you're not a felon in possession, or if you do need like a concealed weapons permit, you have it. But that's a video that I'll make for another time. The video I want to talk about today is something that is, and then one other thing too. Or two other things. First of all, I ordered the Spiritus systems. I'll be doing an unboxing of that and like a review of the Spiritus systems balaclava. It's made of the same material that has that sort of silver infused fabric that's like antibacterial. It's what else? Of course, American made. All the stuff that's important. The highest quality of everything. And the cut is just like insane. It completely like fits your head. It's cut to fit your head. And it was sold out. Like for some reason, I'm on the mailing list like for new product releases, but I didn't see that one, or I didn't get it. I think I didn't see it. And I noticed it like a couple days after it went on sale, and by the time I got there, like they were sold out in every color. So a few months back when I ordered the Spiritus Systems rugby shirt, long sleeve rugby shirt, I had to send it back because there was like a fabric like defect in the fabric. In like one little spot there was a defect, and I could see like the strings were unraveling, so I sent it back. Now by the time I sent it back to their customer service, which is like the top of the top, they're just the shit. I knew that they were sold out in every color, including the multicam, which is what I bought it in. And they said, just send it to us and we'll send you a new one, which at first I was like, well, how can you send me a new one if they're sold out? But then I started figuring, like, if you're a company and you make a run of anything, you're gonna withhold like a certain percentage in case of returns or exchanges or whatnot. Maybe 5 extra of every size. And so I figured that they just had that one as part of that sort of like overstock or whatever. And so when I missed the balaclava, I sent a message saying, hey, when are you guys going to do another run? Are you ever going to because, like Spiritus, companies like Spiritus, Kilo, Faro Concepts, they always do those sort of high-end, upper echelon, military owned and operated. Everything's like, all the designers like develop their shit from their experience on the battlefield. Like everything is top of the line, from the designs that are like real world tested in combat to the fabrics, top of the line, American made. It's the stuff that you can't really see it under night vision. It has that sort of anti whatever, it absorbs or it doesn't give off light, which is what night vision, you need like some reflective, I forgot what it's called, berry compliant or something. Yeah, I can't remember. But anyway, so I sent him a message saying, when are you guys going to get those in stock or ever again? And he said it's not going to be for a while. And then like later that night, I got an email notification saying restock is in. And I'm like, restock? That's crazy. Uh, he just told me that they weren't even sure if they were going to do a restock, and if so, it'd be in a while. And I go on there and there's like one, and it's like, I think it was sent directly to me. It was like specifically for me to buy, which I thought was insane. And so I instantly bought it. So I'll show you guys that when it comes in. As far as we have the Carmelo Anthony case, apparently he's got a team of like hot shot race grifting lawyers, you know, like the what's that dude, the super race grifter, I can always remember his name because I just don't like the guy so much, but whatever. But one of his assistants, another guy who some of his past like run-ins with the law. This is one of his attorneys. They're all representing him pro bono because, of course, the family like blew through the money on shit they weren't supposed to. Like that wasn't his attorney's fees, which is what the crowdfunding you know, like that's how it was presented to the public, is this is for his legal defense. It wasn't used on his legal defense, which is, I've learned, is fraud, and they will be investigated, his parents, for that. This Dominique Alexander, the super grifter who attacked Austin Metcalf's father, remember the night that that Carmelo murdered his son? They had a press conference, and his father, I think, I can't remember what his name is, Jim Metcalf or something, showed up there to like try to like say, hey, let's not make this political. Let's I forgive him. There has to be accountability, but let's not let this get out and become something that it's not. And he was immediately like kicked out of the press conference, and then they attacked him. Like they said, like, this is just extremely insensitive.
What we seen at the beginning of this press conference, the father being at this press conference, these are my words, don't quote anybody, is a disrespect to the dignity of his son. That was disrespectful and just shows you all the character who is not invited. He knows that it's inappropriate to be near this family.
For him to show up like this and try to make it political and racial, I mean, it was just absolutely pathetic that they attacked Austin Metcalf's father, who has since, he's the one who said in like a 3-hour interview, he was discussing how the media will always take like a certain clip and will completely present it out of context. And to prove his point, he says, how about this? You wanted to be, you know, a big tough gangster, Carmelo, so now you're the watermelon felon, right? And so he said that to prove his point. And the point was proven. I mean, it was like, that's all that the media reported on. They were talking about, oh, Jeff Metcalf is a racist, and he's like talking about watermelon felon, and, you know, and it's like completely absurd. You know, it's the same as Josh Hokick, like saying that Michelle Obama's a man, and after like years of Democrats calling any conservative Donald Trump, Melania Trump, every nasty name in the book, cheering the murder of Charlie Kirk, and the second that somebody says like she's a man, some professional wrestler or professional fighter who like splits people's faces open for a living, they take what he says and they like start crying about it. And like it's all they can talk about for 2 weeks. Like, can we have an apology? That was so insensitive. Oh, what are you gonna do? And it's like, fuck you, we're not doing shit. It's like, we're like so tired of like bowing down and giving these fucking crybaby cowards the apologies they need. And they want us to apologize for misgendering them and all this shit. And the second something happens to a conservative, they're like, fuck this widow and these two orphaned kids, who are going to grow up without a father. And then they make some dance, like like the stabby dance that all these and not the whole black community. I think I've made a point to point that out in the a previous video. Not all black people, but the portion of the black community that's like um, that would just instantly that's basically complaining that Austin Metcalf didn't get a fair trial because he didn't have any black people on the jury that would have let him off for simply sharing the same skin color. I mean, these people are crying. These people cried because there were black people, potential jurors that were like, I don't know if I could put a brother in jail. Well, it's like, fuck you. You're not going to be on the jury then. If you can't follow the directions, if you can't be honest, like imagine if white people were like that. Like, and we were that tribal over our skin color. Like, I can't put a fellow white boy in jail. It's like, why not? Like, if you can't hold people accountable for stabbing people in the heart, your fucking race is fucked. And, it's like a lot of black people get this and they're just like, this is so embarrassing. Like, this was obviously murder. Like, I'm embarrassed I'm embarrassed at my own, race, culture, whatever. But some people are just like that. Like, it doesn't matter. And, of course, they'll see this and they'll call me the racist for even discussing it. It was like shortly after I was friends with this black dude, right? He had asked me to talk to his son who was suffering through some addiction problems. And at the time, and I did, I went and met with him, and it turns out this dude had done some drug smuggling for the cartel. And I was like, dude, like once you're in, you're in. Like you can't get out of that. Like you're better. Like nothing I can do about it. You know what I mean? I said you can try to get sober, but I'm sure they know where you live, and I'm sure they know where your family lives, and they'll go after your family to get to you. So anyway, but when the whole George Floyd thing happened, I was talking to him. I'm like, dude, like the black community really needs to like, instead of pointing fingers about racist cops and systemic racism and all this shit that's like very rare. I think in 2019 there were like, out of 9 million arrests nationwide, there were like 10 killings of police officers on black people, and of those only 2 of them were unarmed, and of the 2 only 1 was considered like a bad shoot. The other one was not following directions, was reaching for something that turned out not to be a gun. But you know what I mean? Like 1 in 9 million, and that's not considered systemic racism or like a problem. I mean, any mistaken killing is a tragedy, but like when all these deaths started happening of black people like getting pulled over, and the first thing they do is they start arguing with the cop, and they tell them to get out of the car, and they refuse, they roll up the window, they take off, and then the black community is surprised when it ends in tragedy, like it ends in a shooting. They say, put your hands on your top of your head, and he reaches for his glove box, or he reaches, like for whatever he's doing to try to stash drugs or whatever. And I told him that. I said, look, dude, until your community is ready to like look internally, and your leaders are willing to say like, this is a single parent in the household problem, this is like fathers needed to stick around to raise their kids problem, and really sort of get honest about it, it's just going to get worse. and blaming white people every time a person, some thug gets killed because he was like committing a crime. Number one. Number two was resisting arrest. I can't breathe. I can't breathe. Meanwhile, like eating the fentanyls to try to hide the evidence. And then here, put me on the street. I can't be in a car. I'm claustrophobic. It's like those are all things that led to his death. Whether, I mean, the hyoid bone was not broken. As far as the first autopsy, I know I'm jumping around all over the place, but as far as the first autopsy was concerned, it wasn't a murder. Um, um, they said that it was, he had like five prior medical conditions, all respiratory in nature, so not good if you can't breathe. And, you stroke out, or you have a heart attack because you're wrestling with cops, and resisting arrest as a career smoker or a lifelong smoker, and you have COPD, and you've got heart disease and respiratory disease, and you're recovering from COVID, and it's like, and you're out, smoking meth, popping fentanyls, and trying to pass counterfeit $20 bills. And when that dude dies as a result of just not complying, instead of trying to make him into a civil rights like explosive figure that we're gonna rip the country apart, trying to like martyr, just use this as a lesson to be like, look, we need to do better. We need to not resist arrest. Like when we're committing crimes, like, can we at least do that? I mean, if we can't not commit crimes, can we at least agree that we're not going to resist when we get caught committing crimes? I mean, is that too much to ask? I mean, because it's like this, like, of all these different races and all these different communities, it's like, the one community that just hasn't been able to like get their shit together is like, the fatigue community. And I hate to be the bearer of, or, be the truth teller or the bearer of bad news, but that's just what it is. So anyway, back to Carmelo. They're appealing his case. I don't think it's going to go anywhere. Supreme Court has already ruled on a jury of your peers does not mean like a stacked jury of homies, or like fellow motorcycle riders, or at least four from the Crips, the Compton Crips, are on the jury. There's not, at least two skateboarders to be, it's like, it's not like that. It's the jury of your peers is, can you set aside any sort of knowledge that you have about the case, any preconceived ideas or biases, can you set them aside, listen only to the evidence that the judge has permitted to be presented, and can you make your ruling off just that as it applies to the law? And if you can say yes to that, that's called a peer. A peer is someone who shares your values within your community, within your country, speaks the same language, believes in the same criminal justice system, that's not perfect, but it sure is better than most. But anyway, so they're appealing this case. He's got a team of pro bono grifters, and one white clown who's got to prove that he's like the good one. Hey guys, like me, I acknowledge my white privilege. But whatever. Okay. So, Supreme Court, today was a good day, right? Because the Supreme Court, minus one very disappointed DEI appointee, Ketanji Jackson Brown, infamous for not knowing how to describe what a woman is, but oddly enough has been making rulings on men and women and all kinds of stuff when it pertains to men in playing women's sports, right? Or a number of other issues. But so Katan, contrary to Ketanji Jackson Brown's, you know, best wishes, I guess I would say, just ruled that temporary protected status, TPS, actually means temporary, believe it or not. You would think that that wouldn't need to be spelled out, and that a president that issues, or you know, a country that offers, I guess, compassion, generosity at a time, in a time of need, that's supposed to be temporary, can at least end it at some point, right? Before the you know before the 10-year court, the court date that comes in 10 years after you've had like 6 anchor babies, and now no court in the country is going to, or maybe one, but then 6 others will, like, put an injunction on it, won't deport the father because there's 6 anchor babies that were born in the U.S. and now are American citizens, right? Everyone dependent on the social welfare public safety net. And I'm speaking in broad generalities and stuff, but you get my point. But the ruling basically found that temporary means temporary, believe it or not. And it's temporary doesn't mean wink, wink. Now enjoy a lifetime of taxpayer benefits, and your new geographic, relocation to a first world country at the expense of the taxpayers. We also got a second ruling that graciously affirms, and you can I hope you sense the sarcasm in my voice, that the United States is allowed to enforce its borders.
Supreme Court's ruling on temporary protected status, it clears the way for the Trump administration to remove legal protections for hundreds of thousands of Syrian and Haitian immigrants. Again, these are immigrants who came to this country legally. I want to bring in Andrea Flores, a former DHS official and White House advisor. Thank you for joining us. This is big stuff. What is the real world impact?
The real world impact, Stephanie, is that 1.3 million TPS holders are now at risk of having their status revoked by President Trump unilaterally and without fair review by the courts. I mean, just legally, this is a stunning decision that has an almost indescribable impact on our economy and our communities. So my heart is with every TPS holder who is seeing this news today and realizing, and I want to remind viewers, some of these TPS holders have lived in the United States since the 1990s. But now President Trump can come and take their status away in what is probably the biggest delegalization moment in modern history.
Now, think about how crazy that is. That there are people in this country under the temporary status that have been here longer than who have been here before the World Trade Center attack. And what an idiotic and self-destructive policy to accept migrants from the most destabilized places on earth and say, we can't send them back until their countries become stable and safe and functioning, which they've never been in the past, 2 billion years or whatever. It's like, these are hate to break it to you, but Syria's never had their shit together, and they never will, right? And if that's the test, is that we take people in until they can get their there's country, going in the right direction when they live by Sharia law and it's legal to like murder your wife because she had an affair, then there's no such thing as temporary. Of course you leave that and you want to stay away from that forever, and for good reason. But that doesn't mean that everybody who lives in every other country on earth um, that doesn't have the great fortune. I mean, I'll admit it. Like, we are lucky to be born in America, right? And that's just how life is. Sometimes you just get the the longer end of the stick. It doesn't mean that you're owed shit, and it doesn't mean that the American taxpayers that you're entitled to have your entire life like uprooted and financially subsidized so that you can move into a place that's better. I mean, if that was the case, there's what, 7 billion people on planet Earth, and only what, 380 million people in America. That's a lot of people. I mean, what are we going to stuff them all in America because America, or because the entire continent of Africa is fucked? I mean, no. Sorry, we can't. Self-destructive policy to accept migrants from the most destabilized places on earth and say, we can't send them back until their countries become stable and functioning. And because their countries are obviously going to remain failed states forever, they get to circumvent the normal immigration process and effectively stay here forever, indefinitely, permanently. Why? Because Haiti hasn't, grown into a first world country in the past 15 years or whatever. And I'm not kidding when I say Haitian and Syrian migrants are some of the most welfare-dependent people in this country, right? Haitians are here because of an earthquake 15 years ago. And the Syrians are here because of a civil war that is over. Like, it's now over. It's been over since Trump's first administration came in and eradicated ISIS. Like, but what, we're not going to send them back because that's mean? Like, and I mean, we all know if this is like the Democrats' play to import voters, right? Because the Democratic Party has been bleeding off, hemorrhaging voters for at least the past 5 years, since most moderate Democrats woke up and are like, these people put the priorities of illegal criminals before me. And because the Democratic machine believes that they have if you call yourself a liberal or a Democrat, they think that they've got you locked up forever, right? You're convinced that anybody on the right is racist. Everybody's a fascist over there. They deport people, so they're Hitler, right? They're so mean and intolerant, and all the shit that they've convinced their people. Oh, good news on the Antifa fucktards that just got a combined 500 years between like a group of like 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 of these dipshits. It's so awesome. Pre-planning an attack, an ambush on an ICE agent who was shot in the neck. These fucking cowards, man. And he didn't die. He survived, thankfully. But, these guys, remember after the first Trump victory when he beat Hillary Clinton, Hillary Clinton had been paying, Hillary Clinton donated like $700,000 that was remaining in her campaign funds to Antifa. And it was during 2020 that Kamala Harris was actually paying the bond and bailing these fuckers out of jail. This is back when what's his name? The Jewish dude. God, what's his fucking name? I want to say Schultz, but it's out in New York. Anyway, he was like, Antifa is not even real. It's an idea. Meanwhile, they have like Antifa flags, and I am Antifa. Like that dork in Minneapolis who was so convinced he was like a hardcore dude. He's like, get your guns. Some total poser. Like, and then his photo, see the photos of him in like high heels, and like the guy thought he was so tough, and he was gonna get completely fucked in prison. And I don't mean sexually, I mean like he's gonna talking so much shit on white supremacy, and like the Aryan Brotherhood is gonna fucking get him. He's going in as a white dude who talked more shit about white supremacists and neo-Nazis, and he is just gonna have the shittiest fucking time, and he's gonna get 20, 30, 40, 50 years. I mean, all these idiots that planned this ambush, they got 50 years. So, but yeah, it's good. Antifa going down hard. Let's see some more. Let's get Don Lemon in there for his terrorist attack on a church. Barging in, scaring kids. Claiming it was like he was holding them accountable for ICE deporting criminals out of America. I mean, oh my God, can you imagine? Oh, the travesty of justice, deporting rapists and murderers out of the country. But Trump said he was only going to deport criminals, and now he's deporting regular people. Oh, yeah, dumbass. What he said was, we're going to prioritize. We're going to start there. But we're going to do mass deportations. If you're here illegally, you're going. But we're going to start with the criminals. And when we go into these sanctuary cities, since you're making it hard for us to get them, you're not holding them, you're not honoring ICE detainers when you have them in custody, and they're not armed, and we can pick them directly up at the gate and put them in handcuffs and take them to a detention center and kick them out. Instead, you release them back onto the street. We've got to get 2 SRT SWAT teams to go take them down in their hood around their MS-13 homies, armed. And oh, by the way, in your sanctuary cities, so we also have to deal with 50 of you fucking idiots who are on some encrypted signal app that are doing your best to like impede our detainment process, using your cars as battering rams and using them to block ICE vehicles, blowing whistles in people's ears, kicking taillights out of their cars. So not only are they having to deal with the violent criminals they're trying to deport, the non-Americans, but then they're also having to deal with the violent Americans who are, setting up ambushes trying to murder them because, for some reason they didn't give a shit when Obama deported, 3 million, or Clinton deported 12.3 million. But now Trump's doing it, and it's like, oh, we need to, go out and protest and try to stop it all. Because having borders and, having an orderly process, allowing so you find out who you're letting into your country, that's a humanitarian crisis. That's immoral. That's, and these idiots are dumb enough to believe it, right? Anyway, Haitians are here because of an earthquake 15 years ago. Syrians are here because of a civil war that is over. And now it's time to go. Temporary means temporary. And I love how she says, my heart is with the migrants, right? Further cementing who the Democrats' true constituents are, right? Like, what about the Americans that are struggling? What about the Americans that need, they need a leg up? Not everybody in America, not every American citizen lives in a mansion. Some people are actually homeless. Some people live in absolute squalor with no air conditioning and mold on their ceilings because they have these landlords that are illegal immigrants who have come over and who are part of the human sex trafficking rings, the Mexican cartels, and they buy these shitholes and then stuff them with the people that owe them money. What about them? Or do we only care about, those future voters that, will vote for Democrats because, why wouldn't they? I mean, the Democrats want to, let them in, do what they want, release them out the back door if ICE comes to get them. I mean, why wouldn't you vote for them? Why wouldn't you vote for people who are complete traitors to their own country because they're there to help you more than their own citizens? Of course you'll vote for them, which is why Democrats are so opposed to the this whatever SAVE Act or the Protect Our Elections Act or whatever it is. I mean, it's pretty weird that Democrats want to make asking for ID illegal. I wonder why. That Democrats are the only ones who want to allow illegal or non-citizens to vote. Like, why in the fuck should they have a say in what we do in this country or what laws or who the people are we elect to employ or to make laws? What fucking business is it of theirs? Like, why should they have a say in how our tax dollars are spent? Good fucking God, man. I mean, it's absolutely shameful what Democrats have done to this country and what they continue to do. I mean, there's Americans struggling, there's Americans that need help. What about the Americans that need assistance from their government? We've had it with this suicidal empathy and this misguided, bleeding heart, delusional humanitarianism. Right? We're tired of accepting the premise that our government's responsibility is to the well-being of foreign migrants from El Salvador or Venezuela or North Africa or the Middle East, or North Korea or South Korea, wherever the fuck it is, man. It's like, why does every other country on earth have strict border enforcement except, Western Europe? And it's not even considered controversial. Like nobody finds it controversial that Japan is like a complete mono race. There's only Japanese in Japan, right? Or Mexico, you can't spend a single penny of tax dollars on foreigners, right? So they have social programs, but guess what? You as an American can't go because you don't have money and get a, you roll an ATC down at Rocky Point. You don't just get to go get free healthcare because you don't have money. It gets picked up by the Mexican taxpayer. Nope. No, you get, taken to a shitty hospital and they start calling your next of kin and telling them, like, you better send some money up here because homie's, needs some help pretty quick, needs a blood transfusion. We're just tired of accepting the premise that our government's responsibility is to everybody else but us. It's like, we're tired of accepting the erosion of social cohesion and cultural identity. The people that tell us that, like, multiculturalism is a strength. It's like, how the fuck is it a strength when someone can't speak your language and that sits in their own little, micro community of Pakistanis that all like, it used to be that you had to learn the English language so that you could be employable, because we didn't have social welfare programs that could like indefinitely sustain you, pay for your housing, your food indefinitely. Like, once upon a time, like, there was no tax, like some safety net. Like, you hear those stories of like your great great grandfather, when I came to America, I came with, shoes on my feet and 5 cents in my pocket. Like, they're not fucking exaggerating. They literally had 5 cents in their pocket. They slept on dirt floors. And they knew that if they couldn't get a job, they were going to fucking starve to death. And Democrats just don't, like, they just think this is all a fucking joke. Well, what about your parents were immigrants once too? It's like, yeah, and they fucking, they had 6 jobs and they did everything they could to make it out of poverty. My great great grandparents came from Northern Ireland, Irish Catholics, the Great Potato Famine. Like, there was nobody giving them shit. Dirt poor. Like if you've ever read Angela's Ashes, read that. You can see where my ancestors came from. And then try to tell me that, like, that I need to be more sympathetic to people who aren't privileged like me and my white ancestry. Give me a fucking break, right? And not only were my ancestors not privileged, but they loved this country, and they served in the military, and they a lot of them died, defending this country, defending the freedoms that a lot of Democrats these days fucking couldn't give 2 shits about. Bunch of entitled, coddled, just sheltered, privileged, liberally privileged, from parents with money, never had a job in their fucking lives, never had to pay a tax. And they are telling us, how we should pay more taxes. You're not paying enough. It's like, dumbass. And we are, unfortunately for them, no longer interested in fixing the world's problems at the expenses of solving our own.
This is the worst outcome. I'll tell you, Steph, the hope had been that the court might, for instance, say the administration could end TPS in this case, but that there could still be judicial review. They've foreclosed judicial review, apparently.
350,000 Haitians and Syrians are potentially affected by this decision, and as many as 1 million recipients of temporary protected status across the country from different nations. We are not talking about a small group of people. We are talking about hundreds of thousands of people that are embedded in the fabric of our country and who do jobs that aren't just essential in the blue-collar sphere, but matter to the health and safety of Americans, as exemplified by the lead plaintiff here.
Then how does this work, right? A decision like this happens. What's the time frame on this?
I mean, look, this will become effective fairly shortly. We'll go back down to the district court, and I don't know that there's much more to litigate here, right? If their claims don't the court is saying that their claims cannot be litigated because the statute bars a court from making a decision, and this court is saying their constitutional claims likely fail. It's not clear to me how much more there is to decide in a court, and that means that temporary protective status for these 2 groups in particular could be revoked very soon.
Like,
right?
Your job ends next Monday, pack up your house that you've lived in for potentially decades, and you're out?
I'm not sure if it's next Monday, and I couldn't tell you the exact time. But yes, we're talking a matter of weeks, not months, not years.
Right? I love how she refers to Haitian immigrants who have been here a total of like 15 seconds as deeply woven into the fabric of America. Oh, really? Oh, really? We can't send them back because because they've been here too long, right? The program's temporary. And then when you try to send them back, like when their civil war ends 2 years later, oh, it's not safe yet. That's so inhumane, and so it's inhumane to send them back early. But then when they stick around for 15 years, but they've been here 15 years. They're deeply woven into the fabric of America. It's like, what are you going to do? Just pick them up and ship them off? They won't even recognize their homeland. It's like, okay. It's like at one time they were in Pakistan. Something happened. There was an event that apparently was so dangerous that they had to come to America, right? They couldn't go next door to Afghanistan. They couldn't go to fellow like Islamic countries, Islamic majority countries. They couldn't even go to somewhere on that side of the Atlantic Ocean. They had to somehow come to America because America is the only place apparently that can offer shelter from this crisis in Pakistan, right? And so there's an event that is so drastic that they have to come to America. And then they come to America, they stay 15 years, and they got here, the day they got here, right, they hadn't been here a week in advance. They hadn't been watching videos like, preparing them for their new change. They were like literally Pakistanis one day and then American asylum seekers the next under this temporary protective status. And so now that the Supreme Court has said, temporary means temporary, now all of a sudden they're like, what are we going to do? Just ship them home? That's so mean. They haven't been there in 15 years. It's like, and they hadn't been to America ever when they came here. They did just fine. You weren't opposed to having them come here. Oh no, we can't take them in America. They've never been here. It'll be too like, what's the word? It'll be too shocking or whatever. They can't just come to America. They can't just go home. They've been here too long. What are they going to do? It's like, I don't know, readjust. People do it in America all the time, right? They lose their house and they learn how to be on the street, or nobody gives a fucking shit about them, right? At least none of you Democrats do. And so, it's like deeply woven into the fabric of America. This idea that the United States will act as like some sort of global refugee camp until the entire world figures out how to completely stabilize these countries that have never been stable, these third world countries, right? And oh, by the way, they're opposed to every sort of like form of government. They're opposed to democracy. They're opposed to like freedom of religion. They're opposed to every our culture. People from the Middle East that are like, anti-American, the Ilhan Omars. But yet, we're supposed to wait until their country gets their shit together. A country that runs their off Sharia law, and it's like a complete country of inbreds with IQs in the double digits, and we're like, when are they going to get their shit together so we can send them home? Never. That's why temporary means temporary. You don't get to sit here until, a bunch of inbred people get smart all of a sudden. It ain't happening, right? Until the culture changes and you realize, like, you can't marry your stepsister. It doesn't matter if it's an arranged marriage or not, right? But, like, try to tell this to Democrats. This shit is, like, way over their heads. It's so funny. And it's like most countries on planet Earth are destabilized, and like they'll remain that way because people have cultures that are incapable of building a proper civilized society. right? When you're chopping people's hands off for stealing, newsflash, but guess what? You no longer have two arms, and you can't operate a machine. And since you're not, or you can't, I guess, perform brain surgery, let's give it to him. Maybe there's a brain surgeon in, Afghanistan or Syria. But for the most part, you won't be able to operate a industrial-sized machine. And so what? Now it's like they're unemployable and they just starve. Well, in their countries, they actually do starve to death. Here, they just get, put on your bill. And it's not the obligation of the United States taxpayer to provide people I mean, it sounds so mean to say, but it's just, people are so goddamn afraid of the truth and being real. And being it's like common sense. It's like the U.S. taxpayers are not, we're not obligated to be the world's, to put food in people's bellies and roofs over their heads. I mean, they're fellow Islamic neighbors, right? There is the Islamic majority, fellow, the same, within it, as close as it is Arizona to California. You've got 6 Middle Eastern companies, all that's how close these people live together. They might as well be from a different state in America. And it's like if we were having trouble here in Arizona and California wouldn't let us in, and New Mexico wouldn't let us in, and Colorado wouldn't let us in, and Utah wouldn't let us in, Nevada wouldn't let us in, because, it's like when they let us in from Arizona, things start blowing up, car bombs start going off, so they're not going to let us in. And we wonder why these countries can't get their shit together. They can't even it's just not our obligation to solve the world's problems. It's just not. And if you think it is, move there. Nobody's stopping you, and nobody's stopping you from paying more in taxes and telling the IRS look, I want 100% of my check going to the NGOs that are feeding people in Afghanistan. You can do that. I mean, if they're Democratic NGOs, I mean, they're probably defrauding them, and it's probably going in some other Democrats' pockets. I mean, but that's the Democratic Party. I mean, everything is corrupt, everything's a lie, everything's dishonest, fraud's rampant, and until now, temporary protective status meant indefinitely permanent. Until now, right? And, it's like, at the end, she mentions something key about this ruling, that it's final, right? And that no activist judge can sort of, block it in 6 weeks from now, and then it's like another, nothing happens, everything gets held up by some unelected, Obama-appointed judge. And so she mentions something key, and that's that the ruling is final. And not only that, it's binding and does not allow for additional litigation. The Supreme Court has heard it. They've issued a final ruling, and only the Supreme Court can undo that. So it doesn't matter if another Joe Biden gets in office. He can't override the Supreme Court. Remember, checks and balances? This shit's permanent, just like the Bruin decision, which means gun grabbers can't, violate Second Amendment rights and take your guns away from you. So long as, it's the laws are within the text and tradition of the Second Amendment at the time of the founding of our country and the writing of the Bill of Rights and Declaration of Independence. These are permanent rulings that last forever. And, you know, when you had Roe v. Wade, the reason Roe v. Wade hung on for so long, and 300 million children or unborn babies were allowed to be murdered, is because it took a Supreme Court ruling to vacate that past ruling and say that abortion is not a constitutional right, right? Now, it's a states' rights issue, but it's not a federal issue. It's not an issue that's going to be a blanket sweeping law across the land. I mean, they could have done that. They could have just outlawed abortion outright. But they kicked it back to the states, and they said, you know, true democracy is each state voting on it and not allowing, you know, the coastal elites to dictate how things are done in the Bible Belt in the Midwest. You don't have people, you know, the snobbies in New York and San Francisco telling, you know, the people in Iowa that you need to pay for all the abortions of, you know, the community that's on welfare and can't afford them. You're going to pay for them. And Supreme Court said, no, this is a states' rights issue. If Iowa wants to vote on it and they want to make, you know, do that stuff, then they can, but and that's why, you know, you have very, very lax abortion laws in California and New York. And in certain states, it's like after, you know, the first trimester or whatever, you can't, like, you know, figure it out, right? If you miss your pill or whatever, you're just irresponsible and you use abortions as a you know, morning after pill or whatever. And you find out you're pregnant 2 or 3 days after conception. Now, you know, as a Christian, as a Catholic myself, life starts at the moment of conception. For me, I can't do it, or I can't force a woman to do it, but I can't support that, right? Morally. But I mean, at least, like, could you at least have it when the embryo is small? You know, and you're not needing a vacuum, you know, razor, like, you know, mixer or whatever the fuck they do to chop up children in the mother's womb before vacuuming them out. Could you do it before it gets to that point? You know, can you do it before, like, within 9 months? Can you please, you know, if you need to kill your children, can you please do it in a way that doesn't cause indescribable suffering and pain for the child, that's too inconvenient for you to raise, as, you know, like a byproduct of the actions you took? Fuck, what are we doing? But again, we're talking Democrats here. They don't give a fuck about pain and suffering of children. I mean, they'll tell you they do in order to, you know, scam you on some vote or whatever, or for some law. But I mean, if they gave a fuck about children, man, abortion's the last thing you'd support. Good God. I mean, you see the videos of people that are like absolute liberal to the core, and someone shows them a video about like abortion, they're like literally throwing up. They're like, I totally don't, like, it's like like on the street interviews, like sort of like ambush videos where, like, what do you think about abortion? They're, I think a woman has a right to choose, and who's a man to say anything? Would you watch this video of how these things actually occur? And they're like, yeah, sure. And the next thing you know, I didn't know that happened. I'm against it. That just, you know, like, and they fall apart. They have PTSD from watching what an abortion actually does to a healthy baby that's weeks away from birth or days away from birth. And these psychopaths still have made it legal. Like, those are the kind of things that are happening in liberal states where they get to vote on it. They're allowed to kill children with 2 arms, 2 legs, 10 fingers, 10 toes, 2 eyes, the full body, full nerve endings popping. They can hear what their mother's doing outside the womb. They can hear music, like they're sucking their thumbs. It's just a bundle of cells. Dirt to dirt. Fuck, dude. That's why Democrats, man. I used to be a Democrat, dude. Until 2015, and it was the Benghazi trial, and Hillary is just... And I realized, like, these are evil people. 4 people died. What are we going to do about it? What do you want me to do about it? Or whatever Hillary said. Lying to the American people about the cause of Benghazi, and then secretly telling the world leaders the truth, that it really was an Al-Qaeda cell that had been training for weeks, months, to raid the soft site compound where Chris Stevens was murdered. If you don't know anything about it, watch the movie. What's it called? What's it called? Fuck, 13 something. Benghazi, whatever. I forgot. I think there's 13 in it for some reason. God, I have to look that up. Hold on one sec. Oh boy. 13. Oh, 13 hours. Anyway. Okay, so yeah, back to the video. So she mentions that the ruling's final, it's binding, and does not allow for additional litigation, right? No activist judge is gonna, step up and be Captain Save-A-Ho for the libs. When temporary protective status gets pulled, it's time to go. It's bye-bye time. We're going to get you on a plane and you're out of here. And, you're welcome for the 15 years you had here. And check it out. If you weren't selling drugs and killing people while you were here, you can apply to come back. I'm sure you'd probably be on some expedited list because you've been here for a while. So they would, there's got to be some program that's like, were you here as a protective, whatever? Okay, you can come back sooner than the poor schlep, down in Peru who's been waiting for 10 years for his chance to become an American. Right? Like, so if you haven't been up to no good for 15 years, you can come back. But right now, the grift is over, right? Your Civil War was, 45 years ago. Like Ilhan Omar, she came when Somalia was in some civil war, like at 18. And now it's like Civil War is like long gone, and she's still here. Like, why? Why? She hates it so much. That's the thing. It's full of racists. She hates America. She hates the white supremacy. But she won't leave. Right? You came here to escape a civil war. You would think that when the Civil War is done, she would be dying to get out of here. And she's another one of those. I hate America so much, but I'm going to cross oceans, and I'm going to walk across a desert, 2,000 miles across a desert. I'm going to swim across a shark-infested, strait of something. I'm going to hike through 2,000 miles of an African jungle, tropical jungle, where there's cannibals. Like the shit that these people will go through to get to America, and then to get here and it's like, we hate it here. It's so racist. It's like, well, fucking pack your shit and get the fuck out, for real. Like, I mean, does it even need to be said? I mean, it's like, seems like the most obvious thing in the world. I would be so embarrassed to go somewhere, and then the whole time I'm there complain about like how horrible it is and how nobody does me right, as I have a job in Congress making $175,000 a year, and I'm such a victim, right? It's like, you make all this money, you don't even pay income tax. You know, you're scamming the taxpayers for some fake winery that 30 million it was just a little accounting error by our accountant. We really didn't mean it. Hint, hint, her cut of the 9 billion from that, Feed Our Futures program that she cleared any sort of oversight on before everybody started like applying to be like these restaurants that feed autistic children, and then they start billing for all these meals they're not serving. The same restaurant that Ilhan Omar celebrated her election night win. These people arrested and convicted, and somehow she didn't know anything about it. I'm so tired of these fuckers, man. These thieving, corrupt. Remember when Trump got in office and Elon Musk did the things that he did, something that my entire adult life people were like, if we only could figure out how to balance this budget and where all the money goes, but it's so complicated, like the forensic audit that it would take to go through all these different shell companies and all these different NGOs and all these different social programs, and how money is given out to non-governmental organizations, and it's laundered through 7 different fake companies to get to some activist who then uses it and gives it to some terrorist organization, or and it wasn't until we had these wicked smart what's the word, these computer whizzes that used AI to find all these different secret connections and shit. And instead of being grateful, like, oh my God, you're uncovering all this fraud. I mean, America doesn't have to be trillions in debt, not with how much we pay in fraud, or we lose to fraudsters every year. I mean, you have single people that it's like, 250 million. This one person stole. This one stole 30. This one 27 million. This group of 87 Somalians stole 9 billion. I mean, it's like that shit starts adding up. I mean, you know what a billion is, right? It's 1,000 millions. You could take 1,000 people and make them millionaires. You know what 9 billion is? You could take 9,000 people and make everyone a millionaire. That's how much money was stolen by these Somalian pirate rats that deserve to be hanging, to be honest with you. To be stealing from sick, autistic children is about as disgusting as it gets, right? But so what have I covered? The ruling does not allow for future litigation, and that means that like some radical pro-immigrant NGO, I think I discussed it, an Obama judge, some unelected activist judge, can't run to the NGO can't run to an activist Obama judge and get this thing blocked because the activist judges are continuing to disobey previous Supreme Court rulings when it comes to matters of immigration law.
The bottom line is a district judge sitting in San Francisco can't enjoin enforcement across the entire country. And I know the U.S. Supreme Court has dialed back that supposed authority, but they still find ways to try to stymie the efforts. So you have this case that goes to the Supreme Court that was released today, 6-3, temporary protective status. Something happens in a country, maybe a natural disaster, people could come, get temporary protective status, things get stabilized, they go back. I mean, that's the intent of it, and yet it's turned into, once you get TPS, that's just indefinite. It's kind of an end run around the normal immigration system. And first of all, I don't think that's good policy. Second of all, that's not what the actual law says. But third of all, if you have something that's temporary, president can grant temporary status, and then you're saying the president can't stop the temporary, put a date on it to make sure it's temporary? I mean, it'd be crazy to have ruled any other way. And I know 3 of the liberal judges would have ruled the other way, but that was a no-brainer in terms of immigration policy and immigration enforcement. And then you're going to see this case on the courthouses. That's going to end up going up to the Supreme Court, and it's going to have a similar result. There's nothing in the law or Constitution that says that's somehow like a no-go zone for immigration enforcement. It's the most sensible place to do that in many respects. And the judge said, well, if you enforce the law there, then they won't attend their immigration hearings. And it's just like, what? I mean, what? First of all, it's not the law. So why are you?
The reason we call them activist judges is because they issue these completely bogus rulings that they know will get overturned on appeal, just to cause confusion, create unnecessary roadblocks, and throw a wrench in the functioning of the federal government. Completely fuck up everything that Trump was elected to do on an overwhelming mandate, right? They want to make things as arduous as possible, hoping that they can eventually wait out the Trump administration and get the next autopin brain dead Joe Biden president, right? And that's why the Supreme Court is forced to add this caveat in their ruling, right? To say that nobody can hear cases about this any longer because of all these Democrats continuing to, these judges, these activist judges who continue to ignore the Supreme Court rulings and issue injunctions and whatnot, right? Because if they don't, these Obama and Biden judges abdicate their impartiality and commitment to the law and just find workarounds to subvert and ignore Supreme Court rulings. And they do it every time, right? They have no respect for the law. They care more about, like that judge who let the illegal immigrant who was in her courtroom for beating his wife's ass, and she let him escape out the back door because she would rather let an illegal criminal off the hook than to have him arrested and deported. And by the way, his victim was an American citizen who didn't get the justice she was entitled to until this judge was arrested because they had video of her doing this shit. Actually, just the absolute nerve. And that's why the Supreme Court was forced to add this caveat and say that this is a settled matter. This is like Bruin. This is like, this is settled, and we're not going to discuss this shit anymore. Right? And that was the whole thing. The United States Supreme Court wasn't just done there. And I had mentioned, in addition to that major Second Amendment win regarding anti-Second Amendment gun grabbers, once again attacking the Supreme Court's Bruin decision, which I'll cover in another video, they dropped a second ruling on immigration, which honestly is just as obvious as the first ruling, right?
Was a decision over a policy from the first Trump administration known as metering or turn back. It was basically an effort to shut the door at ports of entry across the southern border to prevent migrants, immigrants, from even stepping foot on U.S. soil to file a claim for asylum. Federal law requires that anyone who arrives in the United States has to be given the chance to apply for asylum, and in many cases then ultimately stay in the United States for a short time. But the Supreme Court said today, if you show up at the doorstep of these ports of entry, you have not arrived in the United States. And so effectively, the government can now close the door and prevent you from even having the opportunity to lodge that claim. It was a 6-3 decision, the 3 liberal justices dissenting. And while this policy is not technically in effect right now, because there are other immigration policies at play, this does clear the way for the Trump administration to have this in its toolkit should there be future surges of migrants along the southern border.
This was a decision over a policy from the first Trump administration known as metering or turnback. Federal law requires that anyone who arrives in the United States has to be given the chance to apply for asylum. But the Supreme Court said today, if you show up at the doorstep of these ports of entry, you have not arrived in the United States, right? It used to be that if they got caught in Mexico, they could say, I'm claiming a political asylum. I fear for my life. And the Supreme Court found that that's showing up at our border is not entry. You have to be within the country. And the best part about that is the Trump administration sealed the borders. There's nobody getting in. I mean, save maybe 1 or 2, like, guys who tunnel under but as of now, like, there are border crossings have been cut to 0. And unless you show up at a immigration office and you apply for asylum, it no longer is, Biden and the Democrats can no longer, dog whistle to the entirety of South America and say, hey, if you get here, you're going to get free health care. You're going to get free stuff. You're going to get free education. You're going to get free money. You're going to get free food. And then you're going to get to, and say you fear for your life, like Alfredo Garcia did, right? If you're my gang member or the gang that I belong to is going to kill me. And so, then this whole process has to start, in the courts, taxpayers funding that shit too. And they're saying, nope, not anymore. It's not that easy. Federal requires that anyone who arrives at the United States has to be given the chance to apply for asylum. But the Supreme Court said today, if you show up at the doorstep of these ports of entry, you have not arrived in the United States, right? Now, the reason this is so important is because it allows the United States to actually have sovereign control over its borders and who it allows into the country. Like every other country on earth, like this is just standard operating procedure, but not here. Like we need a Supreme Court to save our ass with these like Hail Mary rulings that we had today. I mean, our country was seriously fucked with all this anchor baby shit and the illegal immigrants gaming the system, man. Just all these, just manipulating the system and doing things that this country was never designed to do, like anchor babies, right? It used to be that if you were in this country, you gave birth. Like back before you could fly in and they had like baby tourism where you would literally have people in China that were booking, parties to go that were pregnant, popping like 9 months pregnant, and they stick you on a plane so you could get to America and then claim, or then have your baby, and that now you have an American child, and it's going to be hard to kick the mom out when, the baby gets to stay. And then they cry, well, you separate the children from their mom. It's like, well, we're just supposed to let anybody who's a scammer come into America and then pop out a baby, and now, like, that person gets to stay along with their whole family, because, the suicidal empathy, once it gets started, it never ends, right? And it's like so it actually allows Americans to have sovereign control over our borders and who we allow in, right? Because if migrants can just make their way through Central America and make their way through Mexico up to Mexico's southern border, and then slide the border patrol on Mexico's southern border a $50 bill, and then he lets them in. That used to be all that was needed, because so long as you were caught in Mexico, you could claim asylum, and you were allowed to. And that means we're essentially outsourcing our border security to all those other corrupt nations who take bribes to let illegal immigrants in. Then they get into Mexico and they show up at our border, because nobody's going to stop them from Mexico's southern border to their northern border. They show up at our northern border, and because they made it to our border, they get an amnesty hearing, and before that hearing, they get to stay 10 months, and before that 10 years, and before that 10 years is up, they get to have 6 kids. And now, because they've had 6 kids, nobody's going to kick them out, because everybody's too, empathetic, to our own detriment. Where a simple bribe to a government official can get you through, because they know you're not staying in their country anyway, right? And now once you reach northern Mexico, the game is over. And the United States is obligated to let you in under how it's been for years, how Biden had it set up. That's the scheme the Biden administration did, and they allowed millions of people to claim asylum, stay in the United States until their hearing a decade later, and receive infinite taxpayer benefits until then. And we wonder why our country is in debt, right? And then by that point, their original asylum claim is basically meaningless, because they've popped out 5 U.S. citizen children. So the courts are favorable about letting them stay, right? Our immigration policy for the last 50 years has been about making it as easy as possible for third worlders to relocate here, and making the court so congested and backlogged that a migrant will likely be able to wait out any far right or conservative administration for a pro-immigration president. I mean, it's every 4 years shit changes, and it's like, I just have to wait 4 years and we'll have another Biden. Nope, not anymore. The Supreme Court ended that shit today, right? And this generational, third worldification of America is exactly why radical Islam and socialism are exploding right now. Why we have all these Islamists who are talking about, literally the downfall of the West in America. And they're here because of that, because for, decades we've been letting this shit slide. And what we need to do is start issuing a national emergency threat. And we don't need to start playing nice and asking these people to leave or voting them out of office, right? Because when you're an enemy, when you're a foreign enemy on our soil, we get to treat you a whole different way. And it's not nice. This, treating Americans not as sovereign nations, or not as a sovereign nation, but some global halfway house. And the expectation from our leaders that the American people must tolerate their own disenfranchisement for the benefit of some Palestinian. And the good news is, even if some open border Democrat ever manages to regain power again, they'll never be able to run the same mass migration scam, hustle, work as the Biden administration and Alexander Mayorkas, that little Elmer P. Fudd motherfucker, letting people claim asylum from within Mexico. They'll actually have to step foot on U.S. soil, which makes the process far less exploitative, right? So in that way, the country should at least be protected from another tidal wave of mass third world migration ever again, right? And so that's it. I mean, the Supreme Court, with no favor from Ketanji Jackson Brown, the dumbest woman ever to serve, or the dumbest human being to ever serve on the Supreme Court, who couldn't identify and tell you what a woman is during her confirmation hearing, but who was voted in anyway. I don't know how these, like, she was the absolute DEI selection, and Biden selected her. And she's dumb as a box of rocks. Like, if you've actually listened to her, like, dissenting opinions and her arguments, they literally sound like a 5-year-old. Or, no, I mean a 5-year-old. Like a 7th grader. Okay, that's it. I've been speaking long enough. Politics. I like talking about politics, but I'd rather be talking about guns and doing unboxings and going shootings. Quick update. I have my imaging, a bone density scan, a full body x-ray, and a thoracic CT scan. And those are all my pre-op list of things I'm doing. I do all those things on Tuesday. And then I meet up with my neurosurgeon, and we will be scheduling my 10-hour spine surgery, spinal fusion resurgery, where we're going to apparently take out the titanium, spinal fusion rods and put new ones in that are 3.5 inches longer that will lengthen my spine back to its proper shape, my proper height, and I'll be able to walk upright with regular posture without pressure on my lower back, and I will be able to start going shooting again, and shooting not from a seated bench or prone position, but doing the kind of shooting I like to do, the team or 2-man cover and shoot, the sprinting, just the dynamic sort of urban shooting that you would do, the training, pistol to primary to secondary transfers and whatnot. But that's it. Thanks for listening, and I will see you guys later. Take care. Oh, remember, and I'll put a small clip of the balaclava, the Spiritus Systems balaclava I ordered. It's pretty dope. And but that's it. Thanks for listening. Peace out.